We got the power harness here. So what we're trying to accomplish is have large gauge wire. We're using 10 gauge here on this harness that you buy, out to 14 gauge, but that doesn't really matter because the ESC gauge wire is smaller than this, but we want this large wire so we're not causing any kind of resistance heating up. All right, so this harness comes with 5.5 millimeter plugs on the end. But we want a XT60 to plug into our battery. So we're going to cut those plugs off and then take an adapter that is XT60 to the 5.5 millimeter and solder that into there. Once these large power wires are soldered into there, then we can add on our male JST plug and have solder sleeve back here and slide it over and then slide a big one over that. Okay, this is our adapter we're going to use to solder onto the front of that power harness we were just looking at. So on the other side here is the XT60 side, and these are our 5.5 millimeters. First thing we do is take an X-Acto and we're going to cut this rubber insulation off about the same on both sides here. So we slice around that, make a slice down there, pull that off. So now it's ready to solder. And you can see that this hole is bigger than this one. Well, the wire, the 10 gauge wire fits fine into there, but we're going to have to stick like a Phillips or something, some kind of screwdriver, I don't know, and spread these tabs out just a little bit so that the 10 gauge wire will fit in there and we can solder it. Okay, you might be able to see that the tabs were bent out so that that 10 gauge wire would fit in there. So I just used a 40 watt pencil. 40 watts seems to work great. And so before you solder those in there, cut off a little bit of heat shrink and slide this all the way back. I cut it off here so that I can make this video. I'll just wrap it with electrical tape. That's what you want to do later. But to do it right, we're going to take heat shrink, slide it up onto here, and then take our male JST plug and slide it through the heat shrink as well that's sitting on here, and then just tack it to that, tack it to each side. And then we can slide our heat shrink down, shrink it on there, and then slide a bigger piece over this and shrink that down, make it look nice, professional. Okay, on these guys, so we had 5.5 millimeter coming into this wire. Now we have a 4 millimeter out. And our ESCs are using 3.5. So that's where these little guys come in. These are 4.5 millimeter male adapt to a 3.5 millimeter female. And you're going to put one of those in each of these ends. So just fill up all those. We've built up our harness, so it's all ready to go. And so before we plug in the big power wires, we should test the electronics first. So we would just plug this into here into the battery, and we'd be doing that if we were ready. And put the motors on so that we can better tell what's happening with the servos, so there's no confusion, whatever. Be able to see the whole motor turning, and that way we're not just looking at a little square shaft and maybe getting confused. So now in my intro video, I had all 4 motors pointing up. This is because of the landing gear. It would have been really easy to do if all motors were facing up, landing gear down, all 4 corners would be taken care of. But it's not quite right. That wouldn't be like the right thing to do. Because if they were all facing up, they'd all be shifting forward. And I don't know, maybe that would work, but it doesn't seem right, because if they're facing down and pushing and the rear ones fold back and the top ones are up and they fold forward, it's divvying out the weight and power distribution evenly. So we're just going to put landing gear on the front and the motors facing up. So how we did this is we have 8 C4 pieces, 2 per corner. They clamp on, the motor goes around it, and so in the front, these are 4-inch dowels, and this aluminum tube is 9/32. I believe it's a 2.5 inches, 2 3/4 right in there. I would build one and fit it and see. And in each piece, about 1/8 of an inch in, the hole is actually a larger diameter to help with the aluminum tube to go into the part a little bit for strength. This is all done for strength. The foot is actually even epoxied on there just for strength. And the wooden dowel runs through both of these pieces all the way up to the bottom of the actual metal motor mount. So when you put these on, put the 2 pieces, the motor, you have 4 bolts, 4 washers, 4 nuts, and just loosely put it together on that square shaft coming out. And then slide this assembly that you have epoxy to the C5 foot into the 2 holes here that are made for the 1/4 inch dowel with the larger inlay for the aluminum tube. Once you have it pressed up in place, then you can tighten those down. Do that to the 2 front ones. Rear ones you don't have to worry about. They're just resting on the motor shafts right now. So when you position the motors, you want the wires to be facing out on all 4. The motor wire isn't quite as durable as this fine strand extension wire. So we want to save that wire. We're going to pin it to one of the motor mounts. I have it on the one furthest away from the motor. So on this bottom one, there's little slots on the side that use a small panduit, and you can just bend it around and pin it to it. And that holds that wire stationary, so all the movement is taken up by this fine strand better wire. Alright, we're ready for our initial power up. So let's take our harness and plug it to our battery. And then first thing, turn on the transmitter. If you turn it on with a switch off, you'll get an error. So you just make sure they're all in the correct position. Alright, so we're checking for smoke. So let's make sure that we have black to black, red to red. Alright, plug that in. Looks good so far. Alright, let's pull our manual lever, see what happens. Alright, so everything looks like it's working correctly first time. Amazing. These ones facing down are coming back. Top are facing forward. Pulling our manual shift lever. Excellent. So always copter off first, then transmitter. Wrapping up this video with the mounting of, we're going to go ahead and hook up all the power wires to the ESCs. So I'm kind of using a stand. This is just a 3D printing spool that I found. It's a little thicker than what you normally get, so you just build it up high enough that you need it. So we'll flip it over onto its back. And then we're just going to go ahead and go around and pair them off and plug in all the ESCs. Okay, they're all plugged in. Black to red, or black to black, red to red, all around. Black, red, red. Okay, so we have an airplane body that comes through right here. And it's going to want to rest somewhat flat right in the middle there. So we're going to, and this is the front. So we're going to pull these to the back. Before we do that, let's go ahead and we'll plug that in and use a small piece of heat shrink on that as well after we plug it in. Making sure black to black, red to red. And slip that over to hold it. Power wire is now tight in place. So I put 2 wraps around here, holding them forward, one there, and then pinned it there and pinned it there after shifting the wire and making it look as nice as I could. So flip it over. And here we are. This is the front of the plane up here. So this is the tail of it. So the body rides underneath through here. Alright, so the battery sits right underneath here, and the wire comes out to the side of the plane, and it plugs in like that. So there we go. That's the end of this build video.